So, Jeff graduated with a degree in petroleum engineering, and I'm sorry, this is part two. Jeff graduated with a degree in petroleum engineering, and he was offered a position with ConocoPhillips working as a petroleum engineer. That was when gas prices were really high. Price of oil was over $100 a barrel. So we moved to Houston and hated it. I absolutely hated it. At this point, I'm just kind of lost because on the road, I'm burnt out on this diet, this super strict diet, and working out the way I was working out. It was monotonous, and there was just no room for any kind of enjoyment. I saw eating as more of a chore, and not that we're supposed to be gluttonous and enjoy it, but it was I lived by alarms. Meal 1 would go off and I'd have to go eat it. Meal 2, it was just ridiculous, and I was over it. And so it took us about a week to drive from Missouri to Texas. And in that week, I did not watch my diet and I didn't exercise, and I gained like 15 pounds. So stupid. Anyway, so I get to Houston, and I had looked up someone on Facebook that I knew worked with bodybuilders and was certified in nutrition. And at this point, I don't really have a bariatric program, and so I'm still struggling with reflux though. But it would get worse as my diet got worse, and so I just figured I'm not eating clean, so that makes sense, right? So, I'm trying to think. So I started meeting with a nutritionist in Houston, and she put me on a pretty similar diet plan to Patty's plan, only bigger quantities, way more carbs, way higher calories. And I think that probably had I continued to work with her over time, I would have lost the weight. Because it was just a healthier mindset on eating than what I had come from. But Jeff lost his job in October. At this point, he was laid off because oil tanked. And so we moved from Houston to Ohio in with Jeff's parents. But it's important to note that while we were in Houston, and I'm still struggling desperately with this acid reflux to where it's choking me in the middle of the night, and now I'm on a super clean diet, so that wasn't the issue. My PCP had taken me off of the pantoprazole 80 milligrams daily, and he increased it to 320 milligrams daily, which is an insane amount, but I didn't know any different, and it was the only thing that magically worked, that stopped this insane reflux in the middle of the night, so I was fine with it. So we moved to Ohio, and I established with a nurse practitioner there, and I want her to take over my meds. We get to Protonix, and I tell her the amount that I'm on, and she's like, no, I will not write this script for you. That is a dangerously high dose, and if you are requiring that dose, there's some other problem going on. So you either need to see a gastroenterologist to see what's going on in your stomach, or you need to see a bariatric surgeon. And I'm like, why would I see a bariatric surgeon? I've already had bariatric surgery. And she said, I don't know, they might be able to look in your stomach as well. I know that a gastroenterologist really can't do anything other than to tell you what's causing your reflux. So that was the first time it really registered, bariatric surgeon, okay. So you have to keep in mind, I had the sleeve surgery thinking, this is my one shot. It's your one shot. I had no idea that people could revise. No clue. I just was stupid. Bariatric stupid is what I felt like I was. And so I started doing research online, and I find out that not only is reflux pretty common with people with the sleeve, people that have never had reflux can just start developing it. People that had mild reflux before it becomes horrendous. It's actually pretty common, and those people revise. They get a different type of bariatric surgery, and I'm like, what the heck? Now at this point, I have gained back to, I'm about 240, 245, right in there. So I'm like, well, if I'm getting another bariatric surgery, I want to make sure that it's the right one. And I'm thinking, I already have the sleeve, why not just get the DS, which is a duodenal switch? And everybody in the DS community would tell you that the DS is the better option than the bypass, and whatever. It's a lot of it. They're very similar in that they have similar types of malabsorption. Roux-en-Y bypass doesn't have as radical malabsorption, but distal does, and that's important to kind of file. Okay, so I start locating different surgeons in the state of Ohio, and because I'd only ever gone to the one surgeon in Missouri, and she was a nightmare, I set up like 6 or 7 different consultations, and I prayed, and I had finally come to a place where I was like, well, if I have to do bypass, I'll be okay with it. Because prior to this, I was not okay with it, and that's a video for another time. Anyway, so my first appointment was in Dayton, Ohio, which was about maybe a 2-hour drive from where where we were living, maybe even a 3-hour. I don't remember exactly. And it was with Dr. David Schumacher of Kettering Bariatrics in Dayton, Ohio. And I really liked him. He just came across very kind of cocky and arrogant, but like he knows what he's doing, and there was just an air about him that I liked and that I felt confident in. And but he was my first surgeon, and you have to keep in mind, I had been praying, Jeff had been praying, I had good friends in other states that had been praying just for the right move. And so when I talked with him, at that point, revision wasn't necessarily something I was looking at. I didn't necessarily go to him. To be revised, I just needed to know what was causing my reflux at this point. And I was told a bariatric surgeon could find out. So, I was the one that brought up people can revise their bariatric surgery, and he said yes, it's actually more common than you would think. He does do the DS, not every surgeon does. He's not on this famous vetted list that all these DSers on Facebook would tell you about, but whatever. But he said if you're having reflux, depending on the source of your reflux, I would suggest Roux-en-Y. He said, but if you have researched the DS and you understand the DS malabsorption and you're more looking at that, I can do a distal bypass. And I'm like, I didn't really understand all of that. Anyway, he said, but the first things first, we have to do an EGD. We have to see what's going on in your stomach before I can do anything. So scheduled that. I believe that was the end of February of 2016. Yeah, that's when it was. And had that done, and he called me and he said, where did you have your sleeve surgery done? I said, in Washington, Missouri. He said, I don't know what she exactly did in your stomach. He said it's probably one of the worst surgical techniques I've ever seen. And he has been doing bariatric surgery for like 26, 27 years. So he's done a lot of revisions. It's not like I was his first. It's not like I was his second. He has done more than a handful. He said, I don't know what she did. Now you have to keep in mind, when I had the sleeve surgery done, she nearly killed me. I needed a blood transfusion. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I had to go immediately back into surgery so she could drain some hematoma she had caused. It was a nightmare. So it wasn't totally shocking. he said also, you know, because I didn't see her stomach beforehand, he said my guess is she took maybe 10% of your stomach. That would be my guess. Now that scared me because I thought, you know, I knew the quantities I'd been eating, and I said, is there any way that I could have stretched my stomach out? He said, no, there's absolutely no way that you could have stretched your stomach out from what a normal sleeve should have been to what I saw. There's no way. You have a near full capacity stomach. Well, this put me on a path of, I got to find out what was sent to the path lab. So long story short, I found that out. I had 5% of my stomach removed and sent to the pathology lab. Normal sleevers have between 75 and 85% of their stomach removed. How he explained it to me was it was just enough to exasperate the reflux that I already had and make that severely worse. It was not enough to get me to any kind of weight loss. And he said basically the weight loss that you achieve from 297 to where you're sitting today, when I saw you, when I think my first appointment with him I was 238, he said you've done through diet and exercise alone. This sleeve has not done it for you. So I was like, huh, okay, I guess I am a pretty strong chick. Anyway, but he said the only way, honestly, to revise or to solve this reflux is the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. We can do the distal if that's something you want to do, but the Roux-en-Y would do it. DS was kind of off the table at that point, although he was still willing to do it. I felt like the DS would get me to a weight loss that I wanted to do, but he said he would need to basically re-sleeve me and then do the DS. And so I actually put in to insurance for that surgery because I had just been overwhelmed by a lot of the DS groups on Facebook. As far as it's just the better surgery, it's just blah blah blah. So I submitted to insurance for the DS, for a re-sleeve and a DS. Prayed like crazy because at this point I'm still not totally fond of the idea of Roux-en-Y. Anyway, and I don't know, it was about a week later, I just heard no. I just knew no for the DS. And so I called. Now at this point everything's rolling. I've got appointments set up with the dietitian. Everything is geared towards the DS. And so with the surgery date in April for the DS. And I knew in my spirit that the DS was not right for me, and that I just suddenly felt okay with the bypass. And so so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to do a part 3, and hopefully that will wrap things up and get us caught up on this channel. All right, thanks.